Right, good morning everyone, and welcome to another edition of Reading the Ice Monster by the great David Walliams. So, quick recap. So Elsie and Dottie and the Professor have just come up with a plan to bring the Ice Monster back to life. So Dottie flew up into a storm with the hot air balloon that they'd made out of all the silk handkerchiefs that were stolen by Elsie and the Five-Fingered Gang. And then Elsie went into the pool, into the ice where the ice monster was, and she put the wire into its heart. And then a big bolt of lightning struck the balloon. The electricity came down the wire into the ice monster's heart, and now the mammoth is alive. And then, in all the commotion, the professor got knocked out of his wheelchair. And when Elsie went over to help him, the professor said, "Whatever you do, don't look round." And when Elsie looked round, the woolly mammoth was on its back legs with its legs in the air. And it said the instant those legs crashed down, Elsie and the professor would be dead. So this is chapter 32, Knocked Awake. Elsie wrenched the professor out of the way just in time before the mammoth's giant feet thumped onto the floor. Smash! Ooh! It cried. "Why is it trying to kill us?" yelled the girl. "We just brought it back to life." "It's a wild beast," replied the professor. "It's not going to say thank you. Now, for goodness sake, help me." Elsie grabbed the old man under his armpits and pulled him up the huge stone staircase that led upwards through the main hall. When the pair were a few steps up, the mammoth spun round and smashed into the diplodocus skeleton. Crash! Elsie ducked as the giant bones came thundering down all around them. One struck the professor across the forehead and knocked him out cold. Doof! "Professor!" shouted Elsie. The girl slapped the old man across the face to wake him. When that didn't work, she dragged him further up the stairs to escape the animal. The mammoth began pacing towards them. It reached the bottom of the steps just as Elsie had managed to drag the professor halfway up. Surely the creature couldn't follow them up the stairs. To Elsie's horror, it could. "No!" cried the girl. Unsteadily, the mammoth rested its giant feet on the first step, and then the second, and then the third. In a rush to flee further up the steps, Elsie dropped the professor. His head hit the stone. Clunk! Normally, this would have been enough to knock someone out, but as he was already knocked out, it actually had the opposite effect. It knocked him awake. "Ouch!" he cried. "You're awake," replied Elsie. "Have I missed anything? We're still going to die." "Oh, no." The mammoth let out its distinctive cry again, its trunk aloft and its sharp tusks now inches from the pair's faces. The creature whisked its head back as if getting ready to impale them. "Help!" cried the girl. Just then, there was a mighty smash overhead. Dottie had crashed her hot air balloon straight through the newly repaired stained glass window of the main hall. Smash! It descended at speed through the hall. The bottom of the wicker basket struck the mammoth hard on the head. Boof! This time, the mammoth let out a cry, but this time it was different, like a cry of fear. The mammoth scuttled back down the steps and across the main hall to hide under the shadow of an archway. Meanwhile, the basket landed with a thud and skidded across the floor until it came to a sudden stop against the wall. "Ooh," said Dottie, as the cleaning lady scrambled to her feet. She surveyed the scene. There were the scattered dinosaur bones, the shards of glass from the window and the tank, the pools of icy water, the broken basket, and the hot air balloon made of 1,000 handkerchiefs and one pair of bloomers strewn across the floor. "Naughty man moth!" exclaimed Dottie. "Look at this mess! It'll take me all night to clear this up." "Idiotic woman! That's the least of our troubles," interrupted the professor. "The beast just tried to kill us. Isn't that right, Elsie?" The professor looked over his shoulder, but the girl had gone. "Elsie?" he called. "Elsie!" Unknown to him, the girl had made her way over to the archway to take a closer look at the mammoth. "Keep back, you foolish child," shouted the professor. "Shh," shushed the girl. "You're frightening it." "Whatever you do, don't touch it," shouted the professor. The brave little girl ignored him and reached out her hand to meet the creature's trunk. It was the only part of the mammoth that was not hidden in the darkness. First, its trunk performed a little dance around the girl's hand, like a snake being charmed. Then Elsie held out her hand flat, and something magical happened. The prehistoric met the modern. The two touched. Chapter 33. What's in a name? "It's beautiful," whispered the girl. Little by little, Elsie was gaining the creature's trust. At first, her hand only touched the animal's. At first, her hand only touched the end of the mammoth's trunk for a moment. The animal would retreat before the girl would try again. Then, as gently as she could, so as not to startle it, she began stroking the fur on its trunk. The animal pressed against her a little. Elsie took this as a prompt to continue, so she started doing longer strokes, branching out to pats on its cheek. The animal recoiled. Elsie realized her hand was too near the mammoth's eye, so moved it further away. She even tried to tickle it under the chin, because stray cats always like that. Just like the stray cats, the mammoth purred a little. Behind Elsie, the two grown-ups were edging closer to take a look. The professor back in his wheelchair and Dottie pushing him. Neither one could believe their eyes. "It's extraordinary," muttered the professor. "There's a special connection between them." "Like me and my favourite mop," added Dottie. I think it just misses its ma, that's all," whispered the girl. Then she spoke to the mammoth. "Don't you worry, I'll look after you, I promise." Although the animal couldn't understand the words, it did understand the feeling. Elsie spoke in soothing tones, and with all the strokes and tickles too, the mammoth could sense the girl's kindness. "This is history being made," boasted the professor. "History all about me, the greatest scientist of the age, nay, of all time." Dottie rolled her eyes. "Here we go again. I, and I alone, have brought the dead back to life. I am the real-life Dr. Frankenstein, and this is my monster." The professor lifted his hand to touch the mammoth. Instantly, the creature retreated into the darkness. "It's not a monster," replied Elsie. She slid under the mammoth for a quick look. "It's a she, and she's not yours. She's not anybody. We've set her free. I don't care if this thing likes me or not." "It seems awful calling it a thing," chimed in Dottie. "She needs a name." Elsie and Dottie thought for a moment. "Wooley!" exclaimed the girl. "You can't call it Wooley," replied the professor. "Why not?" asked Dottie. No, scoffed the man. "It's boring, far too obvious. It's like calling a dog Doggy." "That's a good name for a dog," replied Dottie. "I wish I'd have thought of that. I called mine Catty." "Heaven help us," said the professor. "Well, let's vote on it," steamed in Elsie. "Women don't have the vote," snapped the man. The girl grimaced. "Not yet, no, but we can vote on this." "How?" he asked. "Because I say so. Now hands up if you want to name this mammoth Wooley," said Elsie. The two ladies put a hand up each. "Looks like you're outvoted, Professor," sniggered the girl. "Darn and blast," he thundered. "What did you want to call it?" asked Dottie. "I wanted to name it after me." Many things are named after the people who made them famous. For example, the Wellington boot is named after the Duke of Wellington. "Well, that's a surprise," mused the lady. "The professor?" asked Elsie. Her face screwed up in confusion. No. The Professor Osbert Bertram Cuthbert Farnaby Beverly Smith Mammoth." "That's a mouthful," remarked Dottie. "No, it would take too long to say. She's called Wooley, and that's that." "Not fair," snapped the professor. "And don't try and touch her, Oswald, Barnaby, Custard, Beatrice, whatever your name is. She doesn't like you, said Elsie. Wooley! Wooley! The girl held out her hand again, and slowly the animal's trunk uncurled out of the darkness. She touched the tip and ran her hand down it again. She must be peckish, remarked Dottie. I'd be peckish if I'd been asleep for 10,000 years. Shall I make her a nice cheese and pickle sandwich? Mammoths don't eat cheese and pickle sandwiches, snapped the professor. Ham and pickle? No, they don't have ham and pickle either. They don't have any type of sandwiches. Sandwiches weren't invented until 100 years ago. And it says at the bottom, sandwiches are named after the 4th Earl of Sandwich, whose idea they were. All right then, Brainbox, what do mammoths eat then? Pressed Dottie. They are herbivores, replied the professor. Herbie who? Spluttered the lady. Grass, leaves, plants, and lots of them. We'd better go to the park then, said Elsie. The professor shook his head. We can't take this creature outside into the world. Why ever not? Asked the girl. Because it belongs in a cage, shouted the professor. Chapter 34. Cage. A cage? Exclaimed the girl. You can't put Wooley in a cage. The mammoth must have picked up on the conflict between the two humans and hid behind Elsie. Hid as much as a mammoth can hide behind a little girl, which is not very much. Yes, a cage is the safest place for a dangerous creature like this, he replied. With that, he wheeled himself over to a spot near the main entrance to the hall and pulled a lever. A trapdoor opened and a huge metal cage rose up out of the floor. Clunk, clank, clink! The noise echoed around the hall, causing the mammoth to move further away into the darkness. With a huge thud, the trapdoor closed. Look, said the professor proudly. I have food and water for the beast in there. He indicated 2 troughs on either side of the cage. It's barely bigger than she is, protested the girl. It will be safe in there. Trust me. Elsie was glowing with fury. I don't trust you one bit. That wasn't part of the plan. Did you really believe I would set this 10,000-year-old creature free to roam the streets of London? But For once, Elsie was lost for words. Dottie stood by her side. All this girl wanted to do was set Wooley free, she exclaimed. The monster is free, began the professor. Free from the ice, free from the grave of history, free to live out the rest of its days in this cage. But it won't be free to see her. Oh, no. I'll be able to open my very own prehistoric zoo, the only one in existence. I'll be able to charge a fortune, £100 a view. People will come from all over the world to see the monster. You're the monster, seized Elsie. I would never have done this if I'd known this was your plan. I assumed as much, child, which is why I thought I would keep this part of the plan a secret until you outlived your usefulness. Thank you, and good night. You may go. You can't do this to us, yelled the girl. I just have, was the reply. The professor rolled himself across the hall to the cage and pulled out a handful of grass. He shook it in his hand. Come on, Professor Osbert, Bertram, Cuthbert, Barnaby, Beverly, Smith, Mammoth. Dinner time. The mammoth did not budge, and the professor's face soured. From a leather pouch on his wheelchair, he produced a pistol. Maybe this will persuade it, he said as he pointed it at the mammoth. Elsie stood right in front of Wooley. You'll have to kill me first, she said. Chapter 35. Eternal Sleep. Oh yeah, and me, added Dottie, taking up a slightly safer position right behind the girl. Why would you bring this beautiful creature back to life only to murder her? Demanded Elsie. This gun fires darts, not bullets, replied the professor. They're tipped with a powerful sleeping drug that can knock an elephant out in seconds. And what about a person? Asked Elsie, feeling more than a little frightened. The professor smirked to himself. It would put a human being to sleep forever. So you're going to kill us until we're dead? Asked Dottie. That doesn't really make any sense, but in short, yes, he replied, now pointing the pistol straight at her. You evil, evil man, said the girl. Thank you, he replied. If you have to kill me, so be it, said Elsie. Wooley can't be kept in a cage for the rest of her life. You can't stop me, child. Maybe I can, said Dottie. The lady reached beside her for what was left of the hot air balloon's basket. With all her might, she shoved it across the floor of the main hall towards the professor. He quickly spun his wheelchair out of the way, and the basket smashed against the wall. Doof! You'll have to do better than that, he purred. Much better. Elsie picked up one of the diplodocus bones that the mammoth had helpfully rearranged across the floor. How about this? She asked, wielding it in his direction. Goodbye forever, urchin, he said, pointing the gun at her chest. The professor pulled the trigger. Thinking fast, Elsie whisked the bone up to defend herself. The dart stuck into it. Twang! Ha-ha, said the girl. Don't you worry, child. I have plenty more darts. Plenty more. Immediately, he began fumbling in his pouch for another. This bought precious time for the pair. Elsie picked up one side of the balloon. Quick! She shouted to Dottie. The lady followed suit, and they ran towards the professor and threw it over him like a huge sheet. Whoosh! Get this thing off me, he yelled from underneath the 1,000 silk handkerchief and one pair of ladies' bloomers. Now bash him over the head with the dino bone, shouted Dottie. Elsie had never bashed anyone over the head before, and certainly not with a dinosaur bone, but there was a first time for everything. The girl rushed over and then stood beside the flailing figure, unsure what to do next. Whack him, ordered Dottie. Elsie did what she was told. Doink! Ow! Yelped the professor. Not hard enough, complained the lady. Yes, it was, came a muffled voice from under the balloon. Harder! Another whack. Doink! Ow! Still harder, said Dottie. No, pleaded the professor. Third time lucky, muttered Elsie. With all her might, she whacked the man over the head with the bone. Dunk! This time, the professor did not cry out, but instead slumped in his wheelchair. That might have been too hard, remarked Dottie. Elsie looked up at the massive hole in the stained glass window that Dottie had crashed through. The snowstorm had passed, and night was slowly becoming day. We need to get Wooley out of here, said Elsie, and fast. They looked around, but the mammoth had gone. Oh no, said Dottie. We've only gone and lost her. Right, we will leave it there for today. So, hope you guys are all well. Remember, you can get in touch and email us. Go onto the school website, find the Year 4 email address, and we can send you work packs, or you can go and collect any printed worksheets from school. Okay, so I hope you're having a really good time at home. Please let us know if you need anything, and I'll see you back here same time tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Okay, guys, take care. Bye.